as patient and public involvement, sometimes referred to as PPI. But what does patient-public involvement have to do with trials methodology research? That's the nature of this talk. Thank you. This presentation is being given as part of the Health Research Board Trials Methodological Research Network in Ireland, and the conference, this course, is about innovations in cancer trials methodology, taking place at the University of Limerick, so thank you to them and DHRP TMRN. For the cancer researchers and clinicians and practitioners who are here, you're always looking ahead at what needs to be done next. But one of the advantages of being a patient is I can reflect on what I've seen and the improvements I've seen. So first of all, let's really recognise the number of people who are now living with and beyond cancer. That has just grown over the last few years. There are a greater number of people taking part in research. It has sadly moved in the UK from 1 in 27, 4%, to almost 25% a couple of years ago. Research itself has changed dramatically, not just in the time it takes for individual studies, but the increase in involvement of things like studies within a trial. But also we've seen problems, the patient-reported outcomes being used more, patient information leaflets, which have just improved beyond recognition. There used to be a stream of consciousness. Now they're colourful documents in plain language that is understandable. And we're using more real-time data. Underlying all of that is an increased understanding of cancer as a tumour and the various tumours. The genetic testing, the more personalised treatments, which is all just fantastic. And all of that has been during a period of increased, more active involvement, where instead of just being the subjects of research, our views, our experiences are all playing a part. I don't think that is just a matter of chance. I think it has been essential to all of this change. The context for today's talk is based on the development of a roadmap called A Sense of Elsewhere to help us understand and know more about patient and public involvement and trials methodology research. Colin Tobin, the Irish writer, describes that when he was a child and he went from the village of Enniscorthy to Wexford, the town of Wexford, that Wexford had a sense of elsewhere. It was something different, something magical, something imaginative. And that's sometimes what it feels like when we as patients get involved with research, and in particular methodological research. But equally, for those who are unfamiliar with doing patient and public involvement, it feels like they're coming into our world, and it too feels like a sense of elsewhere. At the outset, it is worth perhaps spending a few seconds on what is trials methodology research and why it's important. And in this case, I think a lot of the things we're finding out show that although this is focused on trials methodology research, it is equally relevant to those who are working in lab-based, who are working on computer work, etc. Because it's that space where there is less patient-facing context. So, what is trial methodology research? Taking part in any health research studies helps provide evidence of what's effective and what is not. It's the nature of all research. We're asking a fundamental question and hoping to find ways to fairly and with high quality find answers to that question. Trials methodology, but where is the evidence of whether the research itself is effective. And that is the space that is occupied by trials methodology research. It looks and focuses in on the methods, how we go about it, the practice, the practical aspects of it being done, and the processes, the paperwork and all the other things that need to take part. And it does it on both the design, the conduct, the analysis, and the reporting of health research. Why is that of interest to patient and public involvement? There are two reasons for me. I think if we get it right for all studies, get it right for the methodology we're using, then that beneficially affects all the studies that are using that method. The second thing is, and by Alice Begane and Maria Olsen and Paula Williamson, that patient-public involvement helps increase the value, the integrity, and the quality of this type of research. With clinical studies, people bring their direct personal experience. But with things like research which includes data and data managers and or lab-based aspects, then it feels slightly different, both for those methodological researchers and for patients, the public. It feels as if we're being pulled apart from each other. For the methodological or data or lab, they have less direct contact with patients and the public. What they do is highly specific and exact in nature, and it is difficult to see the purpose. Equally for the patients and public, it's less about our personal experience, more about patients and the public in future, and it's difficult to see what we can do. So how do we find somewhere? So from elsewhere to somewhere seems to me a bit like this. If I'm going for a trip to France, I don't need to learn all of the French language. I don't need to know the whole French language. What we do need for these journeys is a tourist guide, a phrase book, some basic information, the currency, where to eat, etc., and suggestions about where to visit. Equally, sometimes with this world, it feels like if you're buying a watch because of the detail, again, researchers don't need to know every aspect of what I've been through on my patient journey, nor do I need to know all the detail of what they do. However, we might want to talk about how to look at the after the watch, the choices of watch face, how to change the battery, and what we think about the style, the comfort, the practical use. And equally in those conversations, if I come across a problem or a difficulty on my trip to France, or when I'm buying, how do I have that conversation? How do I have the space to ask those questions? And do I feel that I'm able to do so? And somewhere seems to me to have common ground for mutual benefit. Where do we have the space to talk about things? We have clear expectations of what we're going to get out of having conversation. As a safe space to talk. As a reason for the discussion. Whether that's to talk about an uncertainty or benefit. And I've found that the more we use metaphors, pictures to explain and make sense of it, then we can all come together. But ultimately, somewhere that welcomes and encourages to stay in touch. Key to this is having a reason, a purpose for the discussion. When we're clear about that, life becomes so much easier. If we look at some examples, the COMET initiative, which is, I think, one of the most brilliant things looking at patient-reported outcomes sets. And when you think back and go, what do you mean we were measuring patient outcomes without talking to patients about what they might think was a good outcome? So that purpose of what is it you want to see in those outcomes? Equally, if you've not come across this group, then please look at the YouTube clip and the animation which explains it. Let's look at some others. The priority studies were not about understanding the unanswered questions as such. What they were about was saying, what is the unknown? What don't we know? What is our uncertainty around things like recruitment to studies? What do we know? What do we don't know? And what works and what doesn't work? The second part of the priority, the purpose, the reason for meeting, was all about retention. Again, and out of those two studies, what we've got is wonderful information that gives us new questions to be looked at in research. More recently, the People's Trial, which it was just out there saying, what would you like to be looked at? What would you like the trial to be about? And currently, the People's Review, which again, asking people, what would you like to review? And what would you like to learn about how review takes place? So that purpose or reason for having the discussion has to be about improving something. Whether it's the methodological questions we ask, the studies that get considered for being supported, whether it's some of those, what's the value of doing this, what are people's concerns. But equally, we want to know that the methodological questions we're asking are relevant for the public. It may even be that what we want to do is improve the communication and the language that's used. But we also want to capture the impact of the involvement and the research and the relationship to other types. How do we actually go about and get this done? You might have your reason, your purpose for having a discussion, but a few pointers and thoughts. Nikita Bark in her paper last year talks about having a safe space and having all the structures in place that enable people to come along. That safe space is just having a place for a meeting to talk together, not about the research initially, not about the patient's journey, but about we wanted to meet to talk about what's your experience of recruitment or retention, or a more recent one for me, what do you know about surrogate endpoints? What do you think about them? What would you like to ask about them? And opening it up to a general discussion. So that, having a cup of tea and a chat, then moves on to the purpose of that meeting. And that clarity about, I'd like to know people's opinions of this. I'd like to know their attitudes towards it. Or I'd actually like advice on this matter or that matter. Or could you correct my English or get it to read a bit better? Those are all the things that make it work. What we've found in this space is quite useful to start with some people who are really familiar with involvement. Doesn't exclude others, but we found it a good place to start. What we have said is you should bring another couple of people with you who don't know this well, or reach out to those. And we certainly did that with the surrogate endpoints. Start from where their people's knowledge is, their questions are, not from your research. Get their questions out the way first. And then, lastly, as you develop onto another study, you've brought a few people, some familiar, some not. The whole point is to spiral out all the time. So your next project, you wanted more new people, some of the old hands. But ultimately, our job is not to come in to help you. Our job is to help you from outside into the community. Because the more people understand about it, the more we can have those discussions. All those are helpful. Colin Dubin, in his book, and in the story about a guest to the feast, says, "For me, even still, Wexford is the most exotic place. But then it was pure wonder. It had a Woolworths and a bookshop and a long street where you were unlikely to meet anyone you knew. But mainly it was that sense of elsewhere, of being away from home, if only for a few hours, that made the town of Wexford so great. But if we think about that, we know what happened to Woolworths, that it didn't keep up with the trend, didn't look online, and never failed. Bookshops are places of learning, but when we look at how books have changed from being on a paper to being on Kindle and other electronic forms, but it's that long street where we meet people we might not know. And too often in public involvement, we meet the usual suspects, often me and others, who've been around. And the challenge is, how do we find new people, new blood, new insights, new ideas? And that equally applies to equality, diversity, inclusion and access.